A single drop of clear liquid can save 1,000,000 lives, but it can also reveal the darkest evil in a human heart. Elena Vance looked at the small glass tube in her tired hands. She had not slept for 3 days. She finally found it. The cure for Silas Syndrome was real. This terrible disease attacked the brain and killed thousands of innocent people every year. For 5 long years, Elena lived inside the university laboratory. She sacrificed her youth, her friends, and her freedom. Now, the glowing blue liquid proved her brilliant theory was absolutely correct. She cried tears of pure joy. She immediately ran to the large office of Professor Victor Sterling. He was her mentor. She trusted him like a real father. She excitedly placed the final test results on his expensive wooden desk. Sterling put on his reading glasses. He looked at the numbers in total silence for a very long time. Finally, Sterling took off his glasses. He did not smile. He looked at Elena with cold, serious eyes. "These results are completely wrong, Elena," he said sharply. "Look at this chemical reaction. This protein chain is highly toxic. It will kill the patient in 10 minutes. Your cure is a deadly poison." Elena felt her heart drop into her stomach. "But Professor, the computer models are perfect," she argued weakly. Sterling stood up and pointed angrily at the door. "Destroy all the samples immediately," he shouted. "Delete the computer files. If the ethics board sees this dangerous mistake, your career is completely over." Elena walked back to her small lab, feeling completely broken and stupid. She cried as she poured the blue liquid down the drain. She deleted her 5 years of hard work from the main computer. She thought she was a terrible failure. She went home and slept for a full day. The next morning, she woke up and turned on the television. A breaking news report caught her eye. The CEO of Apex Pharma, a giant medical company, was shaking hands with Professor Sterling on a bright stage. They were proudly announcing a brand new, miracle cure for Silas Syndrome to the world. Elena stared at the screen in pure horror. The chemical structure on the television was exactly her blue liquid. Sterling had not destroyed her work. He had secretly stolen her perfect formula. He registered the patent under his own name and sold it to the cruel corporate giant for massive profits. Then, the CEO announced the official price. "This miracle will cost $500,000 per dose." The rich man smiled. Elena felt sick. That was a death sentence for poor patients. She quickly ran to her computer to log into the university server. A red box appeared, "Access permanently denied." Elena did not cry. She felt a burning, powerful anger deep in her chest. She grabbed her physical notebooks. These old, heavy books contained every single step of her 5-year experiment. They were the ultimate proof of her hard work. She ran straight to the university's strict ethics board. She sat in a large, quiet room. 3 important judges sat across from her. She showed them her detailed notebooks and explained Sterling's terrible lie. The head judge, an old man with cold eyes, listened silently. He slowly closed her notebook and pushed it back across the heavy wooden table. "Dr. Vance, this is a very serious accusation," the head judge said slowly. "Professor Sterling is a respected genius. You are just a tired student. We have reports that you have been acting very strange lately." Elena frowned in confusion. "What reports?" she demanded angrily. The nightmare was getting worse. The judge opened a new folder. Professor Sterling reported that you tried to steal his private data last night, he stated coldly. He said you are suffering from severe mental stress. Elena realized the terrible truth. The head judge was secretly a major shareholder in Apex Pharma. They were all connected. They were protecting their billion-dollar investment. The board immediately expelled Elena from the university. They called the police and accused her of corporate theft. She ran out of the building, holding her heavy notebooks tightly to her chest. She was fighting a giant monster, and she was completely alone. That night, Elena hid in her small, cheap apartment. She planned to scan her physical notebooks and send them to the national news. Suddenly, she smelled thick, dark smoke. A loud fire alarm started screaming. Someone had quietly broken a window and thrown a chemical firebomb into her tiny living room. The flames spread with terrifying speed. The fire was too hot and too fast. Elena tried to grab her heavy notebooks from the desk, but the burning ceiling collapsed in front of her. She had to jump out of the back window to save her own life. She landed hard on the wet grass. She watched her entire apartment burn to the ground. The evil men from Apex Pharma had destroyed her final piece of evidence. The fire burned away her name, her honor, and her brilliant career. The next morning, a global academic blacklist was secretly published. Nobody in the world would ever hire her again. She had absolutely no money, no home, and no proof. She was just a crazy, disgraced student in the eyes of the public. The greedy corporation thought they had completely crushed her. They thought the secret of the cure was safe forever. But they did not understand Elena's unbreakable spirit. The world of bright laboratories and clean white coats was completely closed to Elena. She needed money to eat, so she took a terrible job. She became a night cleaner at a dirty, noisy agricultural chemical warehouse. She swept the dusty floors while the rest of the city slept safely. But Elena was not just a biologist. She was a brilliant survivor. An old, loyal friend let her sleep in a wet, dark basement under his house. Slowly, Elena began to build a secret underground laboratory. She secretly took small, broken pieces of equipment from the warehouse garbage. She fixed old glass tubes and built a cheap microscope. It was a very ugly, primitive lab, but her mind was still incredibly sharp. She wanted to recreate the cure. However, she faced a massive wall. Her original formula required a very rare, expensive enzyme to build the strong protein chain. Apex Pharma owned the absolute global monopoly on that special enzyme. They guarded it like gold. Without that rare chemical, the old formula was completely useless. Elena sat in her dark basement for weeks, feeling totally defeated. The giant pharmaceutical company was simply too powerful. She could not beat their unlimited money. One night, she was eating a cheap piece of bread. She looked at the soft bread, and then a crazy, impossible idea hit her brain like lightning. She did not need their expensive enzyme. She just needed a different biological factory. She looked closely at the simple baker's yeast in her small kitchen. Yeast is a living organism. It can be programmed to grow and change. Elena ran to her broken microscope. She started a completely new chemical path. She decided to rewrite the genetic code of the simple yeast. She wanted to force the cheap organism to produce the miracle protein naturally. She worked like a mad scientist in the dark. She used basic household chemicals like salt, vinegar, and cheap alcohol to extract the materials. She mixed them with a special yeast. It was a very dangerous and crazy experiment. If it failed, she would have absolutely nothing left to try. After 2 months of endless failures, the miracle finally happened. She looked through the cracked lens of her microscope. The cheap baker's yeast had successfully produced the perfect, glowing blue protein. She had bypassed the billion-dollar corporation using simple grocery store items. Elena smiled a dangerous, quiet smile. She had just turned a $500,000 luxury medicine into a cheap, common soup. The recipe was perfectly stable and completely effective. Now, she just needed to prove to the world that her underground medicine actually worked. She needed a brave patient. Elena had the perfect medicine, but she had no hospital to test it. She could not ask people in the bright, legal world. She opened an old, secure laptop and entered the dangerous shadows of the dark web. She searched hidden medical forums for people dying of Silas Syndrome. She found hundreds of desperate posts. Poor families were begging for money to buy the Apex cure. Elena created an anonymous profile. She offered her homemade medicine for absolutely free. Most people ignored her, thinking she was a cruel scammer. But one desperate man finally sent her a private message. The man's name was Thomas. He had severe Silas Syndrome and only had a few weeks left to live. Elena agreed to meet him in a dark, quiet parking lot. When Thomas arrived, he looked incredibly weak and pale. But when he handed her his medical file, Elena gasped in shock. Thomas was not just a random sick man. He was a low-level accountant working for Apex Pharma. My own company refused to pay for my medicine, Thomas whispered with deep sadness. They said my health insurance does not cover experimental drugs. They are letting me die to save their money. Apex Pharma was a monster that ate its own people. Elena felt a deep, warm pity for the sick man. She handed him a small glass bottle filled with the blue yeast medicine. "Drink this," she said softly. "It is not pretty, but it will save your life." Thomas drank the bitter liquid without hesitating. He had nothing left to lose. Elena monitored his health secretly for the next 3 days. The results were absolutely incredible. The cheap basement medicine attacked the disease aggressively. Within exactly 72 hours, Thomas could walk perfectly again. The deadly virus was completely gone. Thomas cried tears of joy in the dark parking lot. He hugged Elena tightly. "You are an angel," he whispered. "You defeated them." Then, Thomas reached into his heavy winter coat. He pulled out a small, encrypted black USB drive and pressed it firmly into Elena's hands. "I am an accountant." Thomas smiled a sharp, dangerous smile. "I know exactly where they hide their dirty money. This drive contains all their illegal financial secrets, tax fraud, and fake test results. Use it to destroy them." Elena held the cold metal drive. She finally had the perfect weapon. She was no longer just a scientist hiding in a basement. She was a silent warrior preparing for a massive war. The first battle was a total success. Now she needed to share her miracle with the rest of the dying world. But the greedy monster was already hunting her. Over the next month, Thomas secretly helped Elena find more dying patients. Elena cooked the blue medicine in her basement and gave it away for free. Soon, dozens of poor people were miraculously cured. The news spread quickly in the dark, hidden corners of the internet. The poor were fighting back. In the giant, glass headquarters of Apex Pharma, the greedy executives were very angry. Their massive daily profits were dropping fast. People were suddenly surviving without buying the $500,000 drug. The CEO realized someone was secretly cooking a fake version of their product. He called his dangerous security team immediately. The CEO did not call the police. He hired expensive, ruthless corporate fixers. These men were tech assassins who cleaned up dirty problems quietly. Their top hacker began searching the dark web. He tracked the digital footprints of the mysterious savior offering the free medicine. They were hunting for blood. Elena was a brilliant biologist, but she was also a natural genius with computers. She knew Apex would hunt her down. She saw their digital attacks hitting her secure network. Instead of running away, she decided to play a very dangerous game of digital chess. She intentionally let them find an IP address. The Apex hackers smiled. They thought they had caught the stupid criminal. They traced the signal to a physical location. But Elena had used a brilliant trick called IP spoofing. She bounced her signal through dozens of fake servers. The final location was not her wet, dirty basement at all. The signal pointed directly to the shiny, expensive university office of Professor Victor Sterling. The Apex fixers were completely shocked. The CEO looked at the report and his face turned red with pure rage. He believed Sterling was playing a dirty, double-crossing game against the massive company. "That greedy professor is cooking the drug himself," the CEO screamed. "He is selling it on the black market to steal our profits." The CEO immediately ordered his violent security team to raid Sterling's office. The powerful alliance between the thief and the corporation was breaking apart beautifully. Elena sat in her dark basement, watching the code flow across her screen. She sipped a cup of cold coffee and smiled. She had successfully turned the hungry wolves against their own master. Sterling was about to face the terrifying monster he had helped create. The trap was perfectly set. But Elena knew the game was not over. Sterling was a coward, but he was not completely stupid. When the Apex fixers attacked him, he would panic. He would use all his university resources to find the real source. The final, bloody confrontation was coming directly to her basement door. The corporate fixers kicked open the door to Professor Sterling's office. They destroyed his computers and pushed him against the wall. The CEO yelled at him through a phone, accusing him of treason. Sterling cried and begged for his life. He swore he was completely innocent of the black market sales. Sterling was a coward, but his fear made him desperate. He used the university's advanced tracking system to follow the original hacked signal. He searched day and night to clear his name. Finally, he broke through Elena's fake walls. He found the real address of the dirty, underground basement. Sterling immediately gave the address to the angry CEO to save his own skin. The CEO ordered his violent mercenaries to wipe the basement off the map. Late at night, 3 heavy black vans stopped near Elena's hidden location. Armed men in dark masks silently broke down the wooden door. Elena was not there. She watched them through a hidden camera from a safe distance. The mercenaries smashed her cheap microscope and destroyed her glass tubes. Then, they poured thick gasoline all over the basement floor. They wanted to burn her research and the cheap yeast medicine to absolute ashes. The leader lit a match and threw it onto the wet floor. A massive wall of bright orange fire exploded in the small room. The flames consumed the entire laboratory in seconds. The mercenaries walked away, thinking they had finally destroyed the threat. They thought they had protected their billion-dollar monopoly. They were completely wrong. The violent fire was not a tragedy. It was the final, perfect step in Elena's brilliant master plan. She had hidden a small, heat-resistant computer deep inside the concrete wall. This computer was connected directly to a smart thermal sensor hanging on the ceiling. Elena had programmed a brilliant dead man switch. It was a digital bomb waiting for a spark. When the raging fire pushed the room temperature past exactly 100 degrees Celsius, the sensor triggered the hidden computer. The machine woke up instantly. The destructive fire acted as the ultimate enter key. The hidden computer automatically connected to the global internet. In less than 3 seconds, it uploaded Elena's complete, easy yeast formula to 10,000 anonymous servers worldwide. It included simple video instructions for cooking the medicine in a normal kitchen. It also released all of Thomas's stolen, dirty financial files. The Apex fixers thought they were burning a problem, but they had actually lit the match of a global revolution. The fire sent the free cure flying across the world at the speed of light. The massive, evil empire was completely exposed, and there was absolutely no way to stop it. By the next morning, the document called the Free Cure was everywhere. It spread like wildfire on social media and news sites. People could not believe it. The deadly Silas Syndrome could be cured with simple baker's yeast, salt, and vinegar. Anyone with basic high school chemistry knowledge could cook it safely. Poor mothers started cooking the medicine in their small kitchens. Sick patients felt the miracle working in their own blood. The world woke up to a new reality. The medicine was absolutely free, and it worked perfectly. Apex Pharma's $500,000 drug suddenly became a completely worthless, insulting joke to humanity. The Apex CEO panicked. His company was losing billions of dollars every hour. He used his dirty money to bribe corrupt politicians. He ordered the government to immediately ban the sale of basic laboratory equipment to normal citizens. He wanted to stop the people from cooking the free medicine themselves. The politicians tried to close the stores and block the websites selling glass tubes and simple filters. They thought they could crush the poor people with strict laws. But they completely underestimated the anger and the power of the global internet community. A massive digital army stood up to fight back. A huge group of brilliant biohackers from around the world joined Elena's fight. They refused to let the greedy corporation win. If they could not buy the equipment, they decided to build it themselves. They began writing new, free codes for amazing open-source medical hardware. The revolution became entirely unstoppable. Hackers posted free blueprints online. People started using cheap 3D printers in their garages to print plastic centrifuges and mixing tools. They built entire home laboratories using recycled electronics and toy motors. The citizens were sharing tools, knowledge, and life-saving medicine without spending a single dollar. Elena watched the news from her safe, hidden room. She saw videos of normal people helping their sick neighbors. She saw the absolute beauty of human kindness destroying corporate greed. The world had entered a brand new era of decentralized medicine. The power of healing belonged to the people now. Apex Pharma was completely helpless. They could not arrest 1 million angry citizens cooking yeast in their kitchens. They could not stop the 3D printers or delete the files from the internet. The giant beast was bleeding to death, killed by 1,000 tiny, brilliant paper cuts from the public. The fake monopoly was broken forever. The corporate leaders tried to hide from the angry public, but Thomas's leaked financial files had already reached the federal police. The dirty secrets of their massive tax fraud and illegal bribes were on every news channel. The walls were closing in on them rapidly. The global stock market reacted with brutal speed. Apex Pharma's stock price crashed by 70% in a single week. The investors lost all their money and screamed for revenge. The desperate CEO needed a fast, easy victim to take the blame for the illegal tax fraud and the stolen patents. The company instantly cut all ties with Professor Victor Sterling. They threw him to the angry wolves. Apex told the police that Sterling was the only mastermind behind the fraud. They fired him from his prestigious university job and froze his bank accounts. The respected genius was suddenly a hated, broken man. While waiting for his criminal trial, Sterling felt a strange weakness in his hands. His vision became blurry, and his head hurt terribly. He visited a private doctor for a secret blood test. The results were a cruel, cosmic joke. Sterling had officially developed the deadly Silas Syndrome in his own brain. He was terrified. He called the CEO of Apex Pharma and begged for a free dose of the original, expensive drug. He reminded them that he stole the formula for them. But the CEO just laughed coldly and hung up the phone. They refused to waste a $500,000 medicine on a ruined traitor. Sterling was dying quickly, and he had no money to buy the cure. He was totally desperate. He hired a private detective to find Elena's new hidden location. One rainy evening, the sick professor stood outside Elena's new apartment. He knocked on the door with shaking, pale hands. Elena opened the door and looked at the pathetic old man. Sterling fell to his knees on the wet floor. He cried ugly tears and begged for her mercy. "Please, Elena," he sobbed loudly. "I know I ruined your life. But please, cook the medicine for me. I am dying." Elena looked at the man who had stolen her 5 years of hard work. She did not feel angry anymore. She just felt a deep, cold disgust. She did not yell at him or hit him. She calmly walked to her desk and picked up a simple piece of paper. She walked back to the door and dropped the printed paper onto the floor in front of the crying professor. It was a PDF instruction sheet printed directly from the internet. It was the exact recipe for the yeast medicine. Sterling stared at the paper with wide, confused eyes. "I do not cook for greedy thieves," Elena said in a cold, flat voice. "The cure is completely free on the internet now. Anyone can make it. If you want to live, go to the grocery store, buy some cheap yeast, and cook it yourself." She closed the door firmly. Apex Pharma was dying, but the monster had one final, desperate trick. The CEO ordered his army of expensive lawyers to file a massive lawsuit in the Supreme Court. They sued thousands of sick patients who had cooked the free medicine. They accused the poor citizens of massive intellectual property theft. The legal threat was terrifying. If Apex won this historic case, the police would arrest the sick patients. The courts would force everyone to stop making the free cure. The brutal, billion-dollar monopoly would be completely restored through legal violence. The entire world watched the dramatic trial with extreme anxiety. The Apex lawyers stood in the grand courtroom in their expensive suits. They loudly claimed that Professor Sterling was the true inventor. They waved the official, shiny patent papers in the air. They demanded that the judge punish the thieves and protect corporate rights. They looked incredibly confident and powerful. Then, a young, quiet lawyer stepped forward to defend the sick patients. He was working for absolutely free. He did not yell or wave his arms. He simply plugged a small computer into the court's main screen. He opened a highly secure, encrypted digital ledger for the serious judge to see. The young lawyer explained the brilliant, silent trap that Elena had set 5 years ago. Long before she showed the blue liquid to Professor Sterling, Elena had uploaded her original formula to a secure, hidden server on the internet. She had used a powerful blockchain system to lock the file. "This is a blockchain timestamp, Your Honor," the lawyer said clearly. "It is mathematically impossible to fake or change." The screen displayed the exact date and time Elena had uploaded the file. It was officially registered to the public network 6 full months before Sterling ever filed his fake patent. But the most important detail was the license type. Elena had not registered it as private property. She had officially registered the formula under a strict open-source public license. She had legally given the cure to the entire human race forever. It was a beautiful, undisputed gift to the world. The judge looked at the undeniable mathematical proof. He turned his angry eyes toward the shocked Apex lawyers. "You cannot patent an open-source code," the judge declared loudly. "Your client stole public property and tried to sell it. Your patent is completely void and illegal. This ridiculous case is dismissed." The courtroom erupted in wild cheers. The patients hugged each other and cried tears of pure joy. The Apex lawyers packed their expensive bags in total shame. Elena's supreme checkmate was absolutely flawless. She had used the absolute truth of technology to completely destroy the corrupt power of dirty money. The Supreme Court ruling was the final, deadly blow. Apex Pharma officially filed for bankruptcy the very next morning. The terrible empire was completely crushed. Because of the leaked financial files, the CEO and the board members were quickly arrested by federal agents. They traded their expensive suits for prison uniforms. Professor Sterling did not survive to see a courtroom. The great genius was too arrogant and impatient to follow the simple yeast recipe. He failed to cook the medicine correctly in his dirty kitchen. He died alone in his apartment, completely ruined by his own endless greed and stupid pride. Elena was suddenly the most famous scientist on Earth. A famous technology billionaire invited her to a fancy dinner. He placed a massive check for $100 million on the table. He wanted Elena to start a brand new, powerful pharmaceutical company with him. He promised to make her incredibly rich. Elena looked at the check with a calm, peaceful smile. She thought about her dark days sleeping in the wet basement. She remembered the scared eyes of Thomas, the dying accountant. She knew that massive amounts of money always created new, terrible monsters. She slowly slid the check back across the table. "I decline your offer," Elena said politely. "I do not want to be a billionaire. I just want to cure people." She left the fancy restaurant and returned to her simple, quiet life. She did not buy a giant mansion or expensive cars. She used donations to build something much better. She opened a global, non-profit organization called The Open Cure. It was a beautiful, collaborative laboratory. Brilliant scientists from every country in the world joined her team. They did not work for patents or secret bonuses. They worked together to solve the most difficult biological puzzles for the good of humanity. There were no locked doors or corporate secrets at the Open Cure. Every time they discovered a new chemical path, they immediately shared it with the public. They taught poor communities how to use 3D printers and common yeast to build their own safe, effective medicines. They empowered the entire world. Late one evening, Elena sat alone in her bright, clean laboratory. She looked at her computer screen. Her team had just finished testing a brand new formula for a rare heart disease. The data was absolutely perfect and ready for the public. She smiled softly and pushed her glasses up. She typed a short, hopeful message to the millions of people watching her website. Then, with a gentle push of her finger, she hit the upload button. The second free miracle flew out into the digital sky. A new, beautiful sunrise had finally arrived for the future of global medicine.